So I was just about to screen share, and I have a new Apple Mac Pro, and obviously my screen share with Zoom wasn't set up yet. So here we go. So what I was going to show you is that, so this is the Fed districts, and the Fed conference I was at was hosted by the Richmond Fed, which is the 5th district right here. And it was in partnership with the 6th and the 11th. And all the presidents from the various Fed districts were there. And so that was really interesting to hear from them. But what I was going to talk about a little bit about the 5th district and, versus the 11th district. So now the panels, those that were sitting on the panels were largely from the 5th and 6th districts. And so it was interesting to hear from that part of the United States what is happening with the energy transition relative to the 11th district, which I parsed last November because there was an energy conference from the 11th District Fed in Houston, and those videos are on my YouTube channel. But with the 5th district in particular, some of the learnings were that, well, first of all, I just noticed that, with this energy transition, obviously there's going to be a lot of regional variation, and that has to do with resources available. Energy obviously is reliant on natural resources, save nuclear, so it influences the regions differently, and I'll show you what I mean by that in just one second. One other interesting thing was there was a CEO from a firm called Solar Ranch, and they are actually a subsidiary of Shell. And that the CEO in particular said that, just that, sometimes things are moving faster than we think they are, and that, just that, you just don't always know when you're an incumbent how fast things are in fact moving. And then the other presenter was from the Tennessee Valley Authority, and they are actually the 4th largest utility in the United States, public utility. And they are 60% carbon free as of this year, and they're pledging net zero by 2050. But I think she was the CFO that presented, was saying that to get us to net zero by 2050, it's going to require new technology, and that we're not there, and that solar deployments are problematic right now from her point of view. And here's a chart that kind of shows you what this is, the generation that is coming online between the spring of this year and next year. So over the next year upcoming. So what's really interesting about this is all of this solar. Look at all the solar generation that's coming online. And there's a lot in Texas. And here's this red dot is nuclear. This is natural gas with sort of brown dot. And these are, the bigger circle means, more megawatts. And this size, which is probably roughly that one, is, 1,000 megawatts. There's some wind, the green dots, there's some wind. And again, it just gets to where the resources are available. Obviously, there's a lot of, sun in these sort of sun belt areas, and solar is being deployed there. And so I just wanted to kind of show that, because that gets to the idea of, the regional variation. And this is just showing sort of the energy mix of the United States. And so this green line here, so this goes back to 2002, and this is 2022. So that's 2 decades. As you can see, sort of here, right around here, this is when the shale gas boom started in earnest, is right around 2005-06. And you see this rise of natural gas. And then we do see this line is coal, the brown line, and wind increasing, solar increasing, nuclear flat. Now that could change with this IRA legislation, as well as the infrastructure bill. There's a good bit of money and incentives for nuclear, and I've heard through the grapevine that there's a lot of firms that are working on small scale nuclear reactors and all sorts of things, and so I think we are going to see more nuclear in the future, especially if we are going to get to net zero. That's it's going to require density, energy density. And so this is just showing where the shale formations are. And obviously the United States is, blessed with a lot of shale resources. And over here is the Permian. It's not listed. And here's the, the Marcellus, which is really a huge gas play. And then here's the Niobrara, Colorado, Wyoming, the Bakken, North Dakota, parts of Minnesota. So that just gets to the idea of where the resources are. And this is just showing, this is something from the 11th District Fed Conference. And this is one of the foremost minerals experts that discussed the supply chains, which is what I was talking about, which we're trying to redress, but it is going to take a long time. And I talked about that in my oil, gas, mining, and minerals video a bit. And as you can see, China is dominating the supply chain, a lot of it to do with, batteries and EVs and all that. And this is, again, just showing that even in the energy storage revolution, we still have challenges. And so that's going to take a while as well. This is just kind of showing, China's battery supply chain dominance. And I'm not going to go into detail about that. Again, this is all of the minerals that have come online that we are using. This is like 2000 right here is if you can see, when we've added solar and wind and all the tech, the minerals requirements are greatly increased. And so it's just additional. That was sort of one of the punchlines at the Fed 11th District Conference in November. And this is just showing the NVIDIA effect of last week. And this orange line is NVIDIA. And as you can see, here we were just kind of cruising along at the beginning of the year, and then it started going up, and then it just, skyrocketed last week after the earnings call, when they had forward guidance, and it made the prospects of AI and its potential more real. More on that another time. This is just a 5-day look at NVIDIA. And as you can see, this sharp increase, that was Friday, I believe, the 27th. Now, this SMH is a semiconductor ETF, and NVIDIA is a constituent of it. And obviously, it's gone up as well, a good bit. XLE, not doing so well. And some of that's driven by just the interest rate rises and, the sort of sentiment about the economy in general and demand, and some perceived headwinds on the demand for energy. But that is probably about to turn around some, I would suspect, with the summer driving season and the travel season, and just, as we see China coming back online more and just more forward movement, I believe. iClean, which is a proxy for clean energy, also not doing a lot. S&P just kind of, moseying along. So I will stop sharing. So basically, the other thing that I wanted to note was that one of the experts, who was an expert in semiconductors that was speaking, mentioned that, electrification is expensive. And that message really came through a lot with some of the presenters also on the energy transition panels, just that, it's, all the components that go with it, adding more renewables to the mix, adding more transmissions lines, upgrading the grid, all of these things that are going to need to happen are going to make the grid more expensive. And so if we're going to make the grid cleaner and greener, it's going to cost a lot of money. And then the other challenge that was noted by one of the MIT professors was that we have these last mile challenges, actually where the end user is in plugging in their EVs and switching over to, electric leaf blowers, and the adoption, that's going to take time too, because we own things, these items for, 5, 10, 15 years. It's not like we're just turning things over. So again, whatever on the supply side that has to happen, there's also the demand side that has to happen. I'm just grabbing some notes here. One of the professors from University of Maryland, he was pretty much an EV expert. And he said roughly right now, EVs are like, we're at like 10% penetration. And, he sees it going up to 20%, but after that, it gets really hard after that. And I can see why, and I may talk about that with Michael in a couple of days. And then he was talking about that if we were in an all EV world, electricity use would increase 25 to 33%. That is a lot of increase in electrification. And he did also mention, from his point of view, he just says that the grid is better than gas, gasoline combusted engines, on air quality. And so one thing I can say is that, with the AI day we had, the artificial intelligence day, it's a little reminder of Schumpeter's creative destruction. And I write about this quite a bit, and it's on my website. I actually wrote about how the supply chain reworkings, is a form of creative destruction, but also AI is a form of creative destruction, just making that which is old new, and, where our jobs will be reworked. And AI lends itself to cognitive automation, the knowledge worker sector. Its impact is large on many sectors in the future, and that's going to get very interesting. The other challenge with electrification that was mentioned by one of the MIT professors was that the permitting and the times for the solar, when getting connected to the grid, even gas. For solar, it's like, in solar and wind, it's like 50 months to get connected. And gas, it's a little bit less. And then the other issue is cost. And I wrote about this in a story called Texas $1 Million Miles. And basically I was saying that, each mile of transmission is roughly $1 million. And it's probably 2 times that, and it's only going to get more expensive. And he was also noting that there was something called the Trans-West Express Grid, and that had like a $3 billion price tag for 3,000 megawatts of transmission line. And it took from 2005 is when it was initiated. It's supposed to be completed in 2027. That's 22 years. In Texas, we had something called the CREZ lines, and it didn't take us that long, but it was a Herculean effort. And so that just speaks to some of the challenges with electrification, how fast things can go. So there's the minerals and metals and mining saga and dilemma with supply chains, but then there's the hooking up all the clean energy sources, and just the upgrades that are going to be required. But again, this is where AI could come to the rescue and help with demand management, and also working out better, more efficient ways in energy production as well, on the electron side and on the hydrocarbon side. So I think we're going to see all that. So I would say that creative destruction is definitely a theme, diffusing all this as well, kind of going through the energy sector and the tech sector. And again, reindustrialization happening post-pandemic. And US technology and capital is going to be deployed in shale around the world. It has been, and it will continue to be. And so that's also a positive development. And I know that with shale production, that it's very much, there's a lot of data analytics that has gone into making shale more productive and having it be more like a manufacturing process. So these are just some of the themes from the learnings from the Fed conference, and I will be discussing a little more applications and investment implications with Michael Hopkins. Thank you.